Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 4. Let's see what happens.
Hi, Dad!
Chelsea, how are you?
Well, he looks like a nice guy. I mean, looks can be deceiving, but in my head, the way that they were talking about her dad, I just had a different vision in my mind. I don't know.
Stories, what made you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this connection beyond the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And we did.
Really just felt right.
And the idea is that, is love blind? Can you fall in love with somebody without ever seeing them? And we fell in love blind.
It is interesting that on the show, when they meet the family, most of the time, the parents are not prepared. They didn't know. I think it stands to reason sometimes that you couldn't tell your parents you're going on a show like this beforehand, or you couldn't convince them of the potential health of it. I think a lot of people, like when I first heard about this show, I thought it was ridiculous. I thought, just what? Or Married at First Sight. It feels even more ridiculous, right? Because you haven't even talked to the person prior to being literally married, right? Married at First Sight. They literally get married at first sight at the whim of some pseudoscientific process of matchmaking. So I always think, God, this is so ridiculous. But then you actually see some actually manage to stay married. And then you think, well, maybe for some people, this process actually helps them. Anyway, but you would just think that if you were serious about it, I think most people are, that you'd go to your family and friends and be, I'm going on the show, and if everything goes well, the next time you see me, I will be engaged to someone and I will be in love with someone. I just want to put that out there so that if and when that happens, you're not taken off guard. So it's just interesting that after the fact, they have to verbally justify it to the parents. So it just feels like it would go a little better if you did a little prepping.
And at the end, he proposed to me.
Okay.
And I said yes.
Oh, you did? Isn't that something? Oh, so happy for you, Andre.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Oh, gosh, that's amazing.
Of the behavior we've seen on the show from the parents, I would put this up there in one of the top positive reactions, right? Because you just got to figure the dad is like, at least part of him is thinking, wait, what? But you put that on the back burner. Maybe you talk about it later. The important thing in the moment is to be joyful and congratulatory. Maybe later you bring it up and say, like, are you sure? Like, what's going on? But you put it all together like, oh, they invited me over to announce. This is an engagement announcement. And although this is unusual, this isn't how I thought it would go. I trust my daughter enough to know that, there's good reason to believe that this is going to work out. So I should be happy and joyful and accepting now. If I have questions, ask that later.
I really do. I know I'm okay to move, but I feel like this is home.
It's a very cool place, babe.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Does it make you think, I might move to Portland?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I think they edited that. I would like to believe that Chelsea wouldn't be that abrupt and harsh. I don't know. Maybe she is, but that was pretty abrupt. Maybe she's just being honest. Maybe she's open to, she's saying, no, I actually don't really want to move here, but, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm not going to demand that we move to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think we're gonna settle in Seattle, regardless of all the factors. I mean, it is where my family is, right? Family is really important to me, and I don't work a remote job.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I'm glad she mentioned that. So again, I want to believe that this is taken out of context a little bit, that there was a little bit more from Chelsea around flexibility there to if Kwame has a really intense desire to live in Portland. So I don't know, but she's saying she has an in-person job and he has a remote job. So maybe they've already talked about it a little bit. So she feels comfortable in saying, no, I'm pretty sure we're going to end up in Seattle. Or is she just unilaterally making that choice, which is possible, but it's not consistent with her behavior up to this point, but it could be true. Now, I will say that as someone from Seattle myself, that in general, we tend to denigrate Portland a little bit or look down on Portland. It's completely stupid. And I think vice versa to some extent. Of course, there's a semi-rivalry, I guess, in a sense. Back in the day when we had the Seattle Supersonics that would play the Portland Trail Blazers, it was a bigger deal. We don't really have that kind of sports rivalry anymore. But anyway, is that a factor that Chelsea is exhibiting of this sort of Seattle elitism or something? I don't know. I have a feeling they edited that. Maybe we'll get some words from Kwame here. Maybe he's just like, yeah, it's cool. I like Portland, but I don't really have any roots here. My family doesn't live here. My job isn't even here. So, yeah, I guess it would make sense it would be in Seattle. But, I'm kind of bummed out. I don't know. Maybe we'll hear from him.
So.
Yeah, that's good. That's what home should be.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what my home is like. That's what I want our future home to be like.
I don't have any friends in Seattle. I play soccer 4 times a week in Portland, 5 times sometimes. I have a running path, and I run that same path every day.
Yeah. By all means, they need to have a conversation about where they're going to live. I still wonder if they're actually going to get married. I will say, though, that last season I was pretty sure that Colleen and Matt were not going to get married. It seemed like Colleen was on the fence. So what do I know? Sometimes I don't predict that accurately. But just feel like Kwame is not fully in it for whatever reason. I don't know. Seems like Chelsea is, at least from the surface. Again, she could be not fully in it either. They could both be fully in it. I don't know. But if they end up getting married and making that choice, yeah, I hope they talk about it. I hope that they both have equal power. And for Kwame, I hope that he feels like he can assert that.
That I did find someone in the experiment. Her name was Chelsea. I did take the step forward and ask her for her hand in marriage. And so I wanted to kind of just take a chance to tell you about that experience and where I am.
So if I were a little birdie on his shoulder, that's the phrase I keep using, I would have suggested to Kwame that he try to express more empathy for the mom instead of coming across like he's just informing her. Something like, hey, Mom, so about that experiment that I told you about? Well, big news, I actually found someone, and I told you that might happen, and I know that this might be a huge blow to you, and I'm sorry for that. Absolutely. I wish you could have been there with me, honestly. I wish that I could have informed you along the way, but I've been kind of wrapped up with everything, and it's just overwhelming, and I really want you to be a part of it, Mom. So can you fly out here, or can we talk for a while? I know this must be a big shock. You might even be kind of upset with me. Just something along those lines. That's not really Kwame's style with... although I think he's capable of that, but other times he does kind of shut down. So I wonder if I was to take a guess, and this is a long shot, that he has a history with his mom of some issues along these lines of the mom being disapproving or stern or something. I don't know. And he's nervous and is not thinking straight. Because I think if he was able to think more fluidly and more relaxed, he would be able to at least give a little bit of empathy in that situation. So let's see what happens.
You're mad. All right, Mom. I appreciate your honesty as usual. It's a tough situation for a mom to walk into things like this. I don't disagree with you. So I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
The other possibility is that Kwame doesn't want to marry Chelsea and is setting this up to fail so that he has an excuse to get out. I don't know. I don't want to think that Kwame would deceive in that way or lie by omission. He could be unconsciously doing that. But we do understand that a lot of people on the show will feel compelled, according to the contract or the pressure from the producers or some secondary gain of seeing it through to the end, where they're pretty sure they don't want to get married and they go to the altar anyway. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he's all in, and y'all know already because you've already seen the finale and you know that he said yes. It doesn't seem like it's going in that direction.
So I'll respect that, but I do think we should talk about this again sometime. Bye.
Given my cultural clearing in the woods, I would have loved it if all the parents on this show and 90 Day Fiancé would, at the very least at first, be loving and supportive. Certainly ask questions later, but it feels, I don't know, pretty shitty to go through all this and then you tell your parents and then the parents just universally say, I'm mad and it's all about me. Do you know what I mean? Like someone's getting married. Someone is having a lot of joy. Someone is having a huge moment, a positive moment. And you make it all about you by being angry at them. You can be angry. You can be upset. You can be worried. But how about you tend to the other person and be in their shoes? Like, whoa, oh my God, you're getting married. What a big deal that is. What happened? Who is she? How did you fall in love? Tell me more. Because you care. Now, you also have this massive worry and massive conversation you want to have with the person, for sure. But, I don't know, it just feels unempathetic to just be angry. That's all you say. I'm angry, I'm pissed, and end of discussion. I disapprove, end of discussion. I don't know. If y'all could convince me in the comment section that somehow I'm off culturally, I would be absolutely open to hearing that, because I just know that I'm mainstream American culture and I can't do anything about the meanings and the associations I have thereof. So, am I wrong on this?
My mom's been a big part of my life. Massive. She said that as a mother, as someone who, would expect more from me, I didn't do the right thing. She doesn't think that I used my head in this situation. And that...
It's interesting they didn't include her voice, I think because she didn't consent to being on the show. He was on speaker call with her, speakerphone on speaker with her. Sometimes one neuron just dies in my brain and then that word and phrase or idiom just is gone until I relearn it.
I didn't do the right thing. She doesn't think that I used my head in this situation. And that... she can't really say that she's happy for me. I mean, that's a little tough to hear, you know?
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
And good on Chelsea, being healthy as usual. There's a lot of other things she could be doing, but she's listening. She's not inserting herself into the situation. She's being with him. And all those feelings could be there, the worry, the upsetness, the anger at the mom, that could be there. But she's choosing through maturity and differentiation, through emotional health and self-awareness and altruism and compassion to listen and attend to him for now. I'm guessing eventually she'll start talking about those other things, but that is mature and healthy and altruistic and commendable and inspirational and a good model to follow.
Well, I mean, I told her, I said, hey, you have to understand that the decisions that I've made for myself in life have been good ones. I accepted all the failures in order to find the successes. I believe that I make the right choices for myself, and I believe I made the right choice for myself this time as well.
It's only uphill from here. It's only uphill from here.
It's good that he had the empathy to get out ahead of what he imagined would be Chelsea's concern by saying that he made the right choice, he believes. I don't know, it's just me. When you hear Tiffany and Brett talk to each other about their relationship, it's so much more stronger and in line with the way people talk when they're in love and they're about to get married, usually. Who knows, but if Kwame is on the fence or even fully not in this relationship and not intending on saying yes at the altar, you could imagine Kwame saying something like that. I believe I made the right choice. That could be interpreted in a lot of ways. It could mean I'm 100% in, or it could even mean I'm 100% out. I just believe I made the right choice because of the people I met, this is the person that I wanted to give it a shot with. I know I don't want to be with her, but I believe I made the right choice. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that he says that are in that ballpark. Hey, Greenwood.
Just never pictured myself like older mom or...
That can be difficult.
And you said 3 years is okay?
I think there has to be a period of time for us to really enjoy each other.
Yeah, there's different ideas about this. Some people are like, let's get to it. Let's have kids. That's the promised land. Other people are like, definitely one day, but let's hold off. Think of, what's their name? Shida and Bilal. And so there's different paths, and it's great that they're talking about it before they get married, as opposed to Shida and Bilal, and saying, here's my plan, here's your plan. Seeing him say this makes me wonder if he's in. I keep looking for signs. Are they in? Are they out of the relationship? Where are they? And so taking this conversation more seriously, it seems like maybe he is in this relationship.
When they're younger, you can put them in a front pack and they don't do anything. You know, like when they're babies.
But we go to Cabo and lay in the sun with our newborn. You know?
People travel with their kids all the time.
Okay.
We could hire a nanny to travel with us.
You say these things like it's just easy to do.
And then I wonder if he's highlighting this to try to catalog the differences so that when it comes time to justify him saying no, he'll have a list of things. I don't know. That's not a comment. You know, in the real world, people will do that. They will fall out of love, and it's hard to quantify that and hard to know why. People wake up one day and say, I don't want to be with someone. It's not usual that they will just wake up one day. It'll be a buildup of things, of course. But when it hits the tipping point and they decide, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm done, some people will have a hard time knowing how to communicate that, or even justifying it to themselves. So they'll have to come up with reasons, either for themselves or to tell the other person or to tell the family or something. And I wish that people could just say, I thought about nitpicking all the different things that I didn't like about you, but that doesn't make any sense. I'm sure there's a lot of things you don't like about me. I don't think it's really that. I think it's just, I'm just not feeling it anymore. Maybe it's drifting apart. Maybe it's the ongoing conflicts that we went through in the distance, the bad time we went through a few years ago. I don't know. I can't really tell, but all I know is I don't have the motivation to work on this relationship anymore. I just don't feel it. I feel like even as I said that out loud, a lot of people upon hearing that would criticize it, be like, what does that even mean? Because I feel like people don't have that, at least my definition of the magical feeling that you have. Like with my wife, how can I justify or even describe my feeling toward her? How do I describe that? How do I justify it logically? There is no logic to it. It just is what it is. I could lay out reasons, but I've seen relationships where everything's going great and someone is just like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I think I'm done. And you have another relationship where everything seems to be going horribly, and yet they have the magic. It's part of the magic of life. And so I wish people could say that. I don't know. Maybe they're just having a serious conversation and they're fully in it, both of them, and they are just trying to clarify, which is also good.
All right.
Seriously.
It's just making sure that we do get that time to ourselves, because once those kids come out, things change.
Like, do you want to settle down?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. If I was a little birdie on her shoulder, I might change the tone of that question a little bit, but the question is totally justified because the way he was talking it, I think for her, she'd be like, yeah, once the kids arrive, everything changes for the better. It doesn't limit us. We'll make it work because I'm dedicated to having children and to living the rest of my life. It's always been a dream. She said she wanted to have a lot of kids. Whereas people who are more on the fence about having kids, they will talk like the way Kwame does. Not necessarily. Maybe he's just like, I just want to wait a few years and then definitely have kids. But the way he was talking, it just, for people who are, like I said, a little ambivalent at the very least about having kids, the way they'll talk is they'll say things like he's saying is like, man, when you have kids, your life is over. That kind of thing. And your life has definitely changed, right? But you like your new life and you're willing to make those sacrifices because of the glory that you predict about having children, right?
Of yourself behind, or you're sad to see that lifestyle go?
I've always been willing to do this for us,
Willing to do what?
Move to Seattle.
Sacrifice what you want?
Yeah, it's a valid question. It could be considered a little dismissive or hostile to him. If I were a birdie on his shoulder, I would say, don't phrase it like that. Just phrase it like, well, I don't know. It kind of sounds like this is much more of a sacrifice to you than it is to me. And that worries me because I don't want you to suffer. And also it worries me because I worry that maybe you don't want to stick around because I'm really wanting this lifestyle and you're sort of agreeing to it. And I'm not hearing a lot of enthusiasm, which is fine if it's not what you want. But I guess I'm just worried about our life goals coming together here. She could say something like that.
For us,
Willing to do what?
Move to Seattle.
Sacrifice what you want?
Don't take it in that direction. I'm not sacrificing what I want.
But he is. That was literally what he was talking about. If he's going to make a choice to get married and have kids and stick in one place, or relatively stick in one place for the rest of his life, that is a sacrifice to the freedom to move around, to not have to be beholden to children. It is a sacrifice. So, I think he's entering into that mode where he just tries to evade or something.
Seattle.
Sacrifice what you want?
Don't take it in that direction.
Like, he could have easily just said, well, I mean, it's kind of harsh, I guess, when you put it that way. But yeah, I mean, we both would be sacrificing what there's a lot of wants in life. So maybe I'd be sacrificing more of what I would want, but that's okay, because at this point, that's what I want to do. I'm willing to make those sacrifices because I want to marry you and I want to have kids. I don't know about the timeline exactly, but I would be sacrificing the freedom, but I want to. I think maybe she's hoping for something like that. In a very similar way to Bartice, there's just a lot of evasion of saying anything, a lot of sort of political oriented answers, you know what I'm saying?
And I'm not sacrificing what I want, but I am compromising.
Welcome to marriage.
I understand that.
Okay, so that's good. He said, I am compromising. So he is basically saying what I was hoping he would say. And then she says, welcome to marriage. She said that before. It's kind of dismissive for her to say that. It's like, suck it up, buttercup, instead of just saying, yeah, I'm with you. There are compromises, and I really appreciate that you're contemplating and maybe willing to make those compromises for us, for two of us, for us having kids. Thanks for making those compromises. Not like, well, welcome to marriage. That's just what you got to do. So live with it.
That baby, but if we're being honest here, the compromise coming from this side is pretty darn big. I didn't say anything wrong about it. I just said, hey, consider how I'm feeling in this moment. And that's all I asked. Is that fair?
Good. Yeah. So he's laying it out there in a really healthy way, being very clear. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I would like, that's what I thought he was saying. And then he explicitly says it. He just wants some acknowledgement, some appreciation for the fact that he is contemplating making a sacrifice, making compromises. And so all she has to say is like, yeah, I totally appreciate that you're willing to make those compromises for us. It bums me out that our goals in life don't exactly align, but it makes sense. So yeah, I appreciate it totally that you're contemplating that.
I didn't say anything wrong about it. I just said, hey, consider how I'm feeling in this moment. And that's all I asked. Is that fair?
Considered.
Okay.
So I think they edited that a little, I don't know, but either way, it looks like even if we were there, she isn't being super warm about it. There's just a lot of distance in this conversation. Like, she could have been more warm in there and said like, yeah, I do appreciate, thanks, the way I role played it earlier. And then he could have said more of just like, look, I'm in this relationship, and maybe he isn't, but if he is, he say, I'm in this relationship, 100%. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I definitely want to have kids, because we did talk about that. So we're in alignment on that. I'm just a little unsure about the exact timeline. Like, if we got pregnant right after we got married next month, I think I'd be a little worried that it was too hasty. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking like, maybe there's a year. I don't know what we would do, because I haven't really thought that far, but it just feels like a lot of pressure to get pregnant right away. I feel like I just need some time. I definitely want to have kids, and I definitely want to spend the rest of my life with you. So is it okay if we kind of give it a little bit? Also, I want to talk about maybe traveling more, or maybe temporarily moving somewhere else because I have that desire, or maybe spending time in Portland because I like it. I don't know. I'm just looking for some kind of compromise from you. I don't know if that's okay to ask. I just want to have that be a conversation, because I just figure it's worth it's worth brainstorming about or something, you know? Like, if he said something like that, I think that might reassure her and put her in a place of just like, oh, okay, it sucks that we have to adjust. One of us has to adjust, or both of us. But he is putting a lot of effort. He wants to be with me. I'm not worried about his dedication to me or his dedication to working together or something. And then maybe she would approach it in a more warm way. But I'm wondering if my hypothesis is that he's been trying to make it work and or has decided at some point like he's not into this relationship as much as he needs to be in order to say yes at the altar. And it's showing up in his vibe with her. She is slowly getting more distant feeling to him, which could aggravate things even more. And I think we're seeing the result of that. That's just my guess as to what's happening, but I don't know. I mean, right when they got out of the pods, there was just a lot of affection and optimism and happiness. And I think over time, and I think she might have been in a much better mood and kind of driving the relationship a little better. And then, of course, what happened at the pool with Micah probably put a bump in the road for that. So I think we're seeing a result of that. And I wonder if for Chelsea, she's starting to wonder, is he really in this relationship? And she's pulling back and being more scrutinizing and waiting and saying like, well, if he proves it, then I'll perk up and be in this. And if he wants to chase this relationship a little bit, then I'll be here and I'll wake up again. But if I don't see that, then I think I'm just going to, retreat more. So it kind of looks like that.
That's all I ask. Is that fair?
Considered.
Okay.
Now, there's another world, which is totally possible, in which she's a complete jerkface and is requiring him to make all these sacrifices and doesn't want to make any sacrifices herself. And anything other than her way is the wrong way. And he's totally in the relationship and they'll be married, but he'll have to do everything she says. I don't think that's what it is, but, I'm just going to take a guess and say that there are people on the internet that will hypothesize that. They're not wrong because it's just a guess. I don't think that's what it is, but, it could be. All right, well, that is for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really, really do.